While I'm sure Dragapult players will experiment with Dark Bell like they just started yoga and want to show off that a pretzel isn't solely something you eat, Pitch Black is the first set in a long time where there isn't a new card almost explicitly designed to help the dragon. Despite that glamora of hope, Dragapult is still the #1 and #2 decks in Japan's Pitch Black format as they split up the Dusknoir and Blaziken builds. But if you look at the results from Indonesia's recent Pitch Black tournament, which saw more than 1,300 players, Festival Lead won the whole thing while also occupying 4 of the top 16 slots. Dragapult was 7 of the top 16 though, which simply reinforces the notion that the only thing stopping this deck will be rotation in March. The main reason why Festival Lead is threatening all these top decks is Gladion's final battle. If it's the last card in your hand, your active Pokemon's attacks deal 80 more damage provided it doesn't have a rule box. Well, neither Dipplin nor Seaking have a rule box. Best of all, unlike Kieran and Black Belt's training who only boost your damage against EXs, Gladion is plus 80 against everybody, helping immensely against Dhelmise. What this means for you is that yes, Festival Lead is stronger than ever, but you also have to use your brain. Because with Gladion only working if it's the last card in your hand, you have to be boom boom grooving smartly every turn. Whereas previously, most people on PTCGL used the ability to grab any random card from deck as a way to annoy your opponent. To put into words just how scary Gladion is here, Dipplin can now deal 210 damage twice per turn, provided Festival Grounds is in play. This means it's possible to KO 2 2-prizers in the same turn, something that was basically impossible up to this point. Plus before, a Dragapult player could simply promote a Munkidori after you knocked out their active, ensuring it would survive since Dipplin topped out at 100 damage. Thanks to Gladion, a Munkidori now gets completely spanked. And against Dhelmise, you can KO 2 Dhelmise in a turn if they aren't paying attention and promote another one after the first one is sent to JV Jones's locker where his old smelly socks are hanging. Probably because they were expecting a lot of Dhelmise and also the fact that the card's awesome, Indonesia's first place list ran 2 copies of Gladion. I will say that while I understand Forest of Vitality is here to potentially evolve an Applin or Grookey right away, I still vastly prefer 4 Festival Grounds. The third place list did that, except they went with 1 Gladion. Basically, what you'll notice with Festival Lead post July 16th is that every list has the same 56 or 57 cards. It's then up to you to decide how many Gladion and if you want your recovery to be Sacred Ash or Lana's Aid. Whatever you decide, Secret Box is now your ace spec. Losing 3 cards sucks harder than a Vacuum Rotom when I'm home alone, but it gets a Stadium Supporter item and tool. Festival Lead has all those things. And to stop a Dhelmise player from completely ruining your life, Rabsca is basically a necessity. Sinistcha spreads 4 damage counters to each of your Pokemon and Dipplin only has 80 hit points. Rabsca blocks all effects of attacks done to your bench Pokemon, making it the best way to hamper any alternate strategy they might try to employ. Shaymin also makes an appearance, giving you multiple ways to protect your bench. That being said, Festival Lead is always prone to rough starts, and Munkidori and Dragapult can pose some issues. But there's a reason why this is now a top 5 deck, which means people might start teching for it. One card you could see is Fluttermane. This shuts off your opponent's active's ability. Thwacky's Boom Boom Groove only works if your active has the Festival Lead ability. You see the problem there. There's also this Chi-Yu who one-shots Dipplin, discards Festival Grounds, and stops you from playing Festival Grounds next turn. Despite those potential hiccups, Festival Grounds is a rare single prize deck with positive matchups against almost every EX and non-EX deck. And that is definitely worth celebrating. With the addition of Hide and Sneak, Alakazam needs to change like my pants every time For the Win uploads a new video. In case you forgot, the Hide and Sneak ability blocks all effects of attacks. Powerful Hand is an effect of an attack. Not to mention Dhelmise one-shots Alakazam. The Dunsparce EX is useless in the matchup, and Lillie's Clefairy might not be strong enough if they limit their bench. That's where Toucannon blasts in. While it's not doing anything to help the whole getting destroyed by Watchtower thing, Toucan Sam offers up a Pokemon who hits for damage, all for 1 of any energy. Dealing 60 base damage plus 20 more for each bench Pokemon in play, you only need there to be 1 bench Pokemon for Banette or 0 for Sinistcha. Dhelmise is still a massive obstacle, but one problem at a time. Outside of this matchup, Toucannon is simply a great attacker, dealing up to 260 damage. This means you can get stamped or judged or carded or Zerosicked and still threaten a huge attack next turn. And I didn't even mention the fact that Toucannon's ability draws a card every turn, which helps make Alakazam's feat more powerful. Aside from a couple changes like increasing the Dawn count to 4 and cutting Psyduck, this is pretty much what Alakazam Toucannon is going to look like. Because Toucannon is your spanking new backup attacker, the enhanced hammer count is lessened to 1 since Mist and Rocky Energy aren't as much of a problem anymore. And I don't hate the 1 Wonders patch as it allows you to Enriching Energy and power up Alakazam in the same turn. Or you can ignore all this advice and just YOLO it with your old Alakazam list, hoping you never face Dhelmise. Either option is valid. There's a lot of colorless Pokemon helped out by the release of Backtrack badge. Being able to reflip coins for their attacks means Mega Audino can be an energy accelerator, Mega Kangaskhan can flip back-to-back tails and make you hate life when all you needed was one to KO a stupid Teal-Masked Ogerpon, and Lugia EX can be an energy discarderer. But my favorite user of Backtrack badge that will enrage the masses is Unfezant. I've ranted about this Pidove numerous times in the past. I mean, why mention Unfezant EX then never give it to us? But it finally has a chance to be useful. Provided you have Risky Ruins down, putting Pidove into play means it takes 20 damage to the beak. That's perfect because when it has 30 or less hit points remaining, it can Warp Digivolve directly into an Unfezant from deck, completely bypassing the need for rare candy and laughing in Badoo's face. What makes Unfezant worth all this effort is the fact that you have 2 chances to make it completely immune to all damage and effects of attacks. 120 damage ain't bad, it just means you also need to run Patrat to stop their Munkidori. But who cares about optimal strategery? If you flip heads 50% of the time, you'll win 69% of the time because don't forget that shred attacks exist. And you'll always prize side deck against Dusknoir. As much as I want to show you a fun Joltik build offering up tons of early energy acceleration, the Dragapult Munkidori Crispin build will be the best. Plus, it makes Patrat redundant while also allowing you to spread damage around if they start spanking their monkey in front of you. To be fair, this version mostly uses Dragapult for the Dracloak draw engine, though there is a Neo upper to attack with it just in case. I did make some tweaks from the Japanese list, like adding a copy of Fan Rotom so you can potentially turn a single Poké Pad into 3 Pidove. I also swapped the 2 Night Stretcher in favor of a Sacred Ashen Energy Recycler because I refuse to reward people for pairing something with Dragapult. You know what? Screw it. I'll add Lugia EX to this section because it can be super annoying for Dragapult to deal with. Give Lugia a Backtrack badge, you get 2 chances to discard at least 1 energy from their active. Unfortunately, Hyper Whirlpool requires 3 energy. That could be Glass Trumpet or Smooch 'em if you recently saw some bare toes. For me though, I want to give Joltik the spotlight. Load up on Grass and Lightning Energy, attach 1 to Joltik, then accelerate 2 of each into play. With access to Bouffalant, Lugia can get a 60 damage reduction from attacks, making this an almost nightmare matchup for Dragapult until PTCGL decides it has plot armor and sees you flipping 2 tails in a row. Additionally, you kind of have to play Bastiodon. Any deck with Teal-Masked Ogerpon and Meganium is a massive problem, but everybody else will suffer your wrath. There's also Crushing Hammer because if you're going to be a buttface, you may as well make as big of a stink as possible. And if you've already got Bouffalant and Backtrack badge, may as well add in Mega Kangaskhan to potentially take big KOs. Admittedly, this list is a bit much. If you're having trouble with consistency, the Crushing Hammers could be taken out in favor of an extra Iris or Morty, plus maybe a Meowth EX. And if you believe in the heart of the cards, 3 Joltik could go down to 2. But if you're looking for a way to control people's energy, well, this is a fun option. Because the next one definitely is not. I know I've pretended in the past that Bastiodon isn't solely a control card, but yeah, it's solely a control card. Still, whether it's hope or cope, I'm choosing to believe that Bastiodon won't make too much of an impact on the game despite its game-changing ability. When it's on the bench, Bastiodon prevents your opponent's Pokemon with 2 or fewer energy attached from dealing damage. To avoid a boss's orders from nullifying the ability, try to always have 2 of them on the field at the same time. There's multiple ways to go about a partner here, like Turtonator for energy discard or Elegium for energy disruption, putting them all on a lowly Badoo that has free retreat so they're stuck there. This is in addition to Handheld Fan and Crushing Hammer and maybe even Rust Syndicate Grunt. But that strategy is really only for degenerates who own multiple life-sized Gardevoir Love Dolls because you need one for the weekend as well. Alternatively, you can always just chuck Bastiodon into any other fossil deck. Since Fossil Quarry lets you get any fossils, even 2 copies in something like Tyrantrum, Colress, and Grandtree could be enough to win the game. And there's always good old Mega Kangaskhan with Auroras and Jumbo Ice Cream I showed off in a previous Pitch Black preview video. Unfortunately, even with all these potentially interesting pairings, the one Bastiodon list that's seen the most success is with Iron Thorns EX. Initialization shuts off all Pokemon EX abilities, meaning they can't Meowth for Crispin or Ogerpon to accelerate energy. That's kind of a problem because if their active doesn't have at least 3 energy attached, they aren't doing much. Meanwhile, you're using Crispin to power up Iron Thorns, meaning going first is super important so you can attack turn 2 with Hammer and Handy Fan controlling their energy. While Iron Thorns having to send an energy back can get you into a sticky situation like a Hydrapple just basted you with its Syrup Storm, that can actually be used to your advantage. Attach a Magnetic Metal to Iron Thorns, attack, then pass it back to Bastiodon, giving the thing free retreat. And thanks to Voltaic energy, Iron Thorns can now 2-shot a Dragapult. Munkidori is annoying, but if they're devoting an energy to the monkey, that's one not going to the dragon. Finishing 112th at the major Pitch Black tournament in Indonesia with 1,300 players, the list is exactly what you think it is. Iron Thorns is the only basic, so you're guaranteed to start it. From there, try to go first so you get that turn 1 attachment plus maybe a turn 2 Crispin. Since they can't use Latias or Ogerpon or Meowth or Fezandipiti's abilities, the game should be just slow enough that you can win by only dealing 140 or 160 damage. Oh, and you might have noticed the one copy of Xerosic in case you mulligan 20 times. Or you can ignore everything I said in this section, run double Reuniquels with Bastiodon and no fossils, and laugh as you farm Concedes with the jankiest of jank decks. I was going to move on to the next section, but due to popular demand, I'll be talking about the Gengar EX version as well. See, peer pressure does work. Just like Elgium and Handheld Fan, Gengar EX is all about moving energy around, not discarding it. Because if the energy's in the graveyard, they can recover it. But if you put all 8 of Dragapult's energy on a Badoo, well, Badoo nothing and you win. While Gengar's attack moves energy off of their active, its ability places 2 damage counters on whoever gets an energy attached from hand. Normally, this is a bad thing in a Munkidori world, but it's all about masterfully baiting them. If they attach to Munkidori, they aren't attaching to anybody else. With Bastiodon in play, that means they might not do anything. Plus, just run Patrat or your own Munkidori if you're worried. On top of the old Colress for Fossil or Grand Tree strategy, which is just about the only way this deck stands a chance, Janine's Secret Art is the Energy Accelerator. And while it's not in the list, remember that Mega Gengar can always be included as a decent backup attacker or prize card denierer. Looking at the list, I wouldn't mind an energy switch or two, but then you'd have to cut an energy. I also saw a Japanese list that went with a 3-1-2 Bastiodon line. Except then I remembered every time PTCGL prized either both Lunatone or both Solrock and went with a 3-2-3 line. Because if you can't stop them from attacking, you will not win any games with this deck. You didn't think I would include just one fossilized deck in this video, did you? Something that seems really fun is Mega Froslass EX with Tirtouga. Mega Froslass does damage based on the number of cards in their feet, so a normal person will try to play as many cards as possible lest their cheats get clapped. Tirtouga punishes smart gameplay by dealing 30 damage times the number of items in their graveyard, all for the same water. The only Japanese list I could find didn't include Xerosic or Airy or Hand Trimmer, which means you're relying a little too heavily on your opponent playing their items. And if they know what they're doing, a smart Lillie could limit their hand size, making both Froslass and Tirtouga useless. So I made a couple changes. Gone is the Caracosta that's immune to damage from those with special energy attached. In is one each of Xerosic and Airy. I also swapped Red Card for Hand Trimmer. If they have a large hand, you typically want to leave it untouched. Unless you're worried about Mega Froslass getting KO'd and giving up 3 prizes. Then you want as many of those cards in the discard pile as possible for Tirtouga. And don't forget that Lucian exists if you want to potentially give them 6 cards, allowing Mega Froslass to deal 300 damage. There's very little strategy here. Draw cards with the Dunsparce, then attack with Mega Froslass if they have a large hand, or Tirtouga if they played a lot of items. Maybe a 1-1 Mega Lopunny would be a decent idea, but then it wouldn't be a Froslass Tirtouga deck now, would it? Unlike a trailer that spoils the entire movie months ahead of time, this preview for Mega Manectric drops a bit of fun on your tongue, giving you a taste of what it might be able to do come 30th Celebration in 2 months. Because that's when Mew EX arrives, giving the deck an easy counter to both Terra Greninja and Mega Lucario, both of whom would normally give this deck problems. With Pitch Black, Lightning decks gain Voltaic energy, which boosts damage by 20, and it stacks. You only need 1 on a Mega Manectric to finally be able to one-shot things with 210 hit points, meaning your energy is safe, but Ogerpon and Fez and Latias are not. And if you do discard all the attached energy, Mega Lucario's KO'd as well. That 20 damage boost from Voltaic is honestly all it took to take Mega Manectric from should be good to actually good. Now you have an answer for pretty much every multi-prize matchup. And don't forget about Mega Electros. With a Voltaic attached, Split Bomb hits their active for 80, meaning you can KO something like a Dreepy while also hitting for 60 on a bench Badoo or something. Additionally, Mega Manectric gains a new Baby Manectric. However, don't be lured in like sailors used to be by sexy manatees thinking they were mermaids. This card is not as good as you think it is. Yes, Flash Barrier makes Manectric immune to damage from evolutions, but it only does 50 damage, meaning Dragapult will just use Munkidori to masterfully bait you. Instead, in rare instances, you'll want to use Manectric to KO a Badoo or Dreepy if you have a Voltaic attached, potentially buying you a turn. In more common cases, though, it's for Festival Lead. They can't really do a whole lot if you have a lone Manectric in play immune to damage from evolutions. If you're wondering about Slowking, well, they'll just attack with Lily's Clefairy, and Zoroark will just copy Zekrom Shred. As a result, I think 1 Baby Manectric with at least 3 Voltaic is how you build the deck. I'm also a huge fan of a 1-1 or even 2-2 Ionos Kilowattrel, so you're continually drawing cards every turn. You just have to make sure your electric accelerations are done properly, since Kilowattrel discards an energy to draw you up to 6. Otherwise, mess around with accounts of Electric and your supporters, find the best list, and be happy Manectric is back. Since releasing in Japan 5 months ago, Mega Slowbro EX has given Slowking decks a way to deal with Festival leads since they now run both Shaymin and Rabsca to block Kieran. Well, since they took their sweet time bringing Mega Slowbro out in English, the stupid thing can now be two-shot if they have GLADION'S final battle. However, it's still a card to at least think about. For 3 Psychic, which means Wondrous Patch and Smoocher are necessary, Mega Slowbro deals 180 damage. That's fine, one-shotting Dragapult if Clefairy's down. What you care about is the 12 revenge damage counters. So if a Dipplin hits into Mega Slowbro, they get knocked out. And so too does the second Dipplin. While trading 3 prizes for 2 is typically seen as a not great thing, Festival lead players have to make sure 2 Dipplin have energy. Otherwise, the first gets KO'd and the second one will just kinda sit there flaccid, waiting to get beaten off. There's nothing special about putting Mega Slowbro inside a Slowking list. You have 4 Slowpoke, 3 Slowking, and 1 Mega. That's it. And the strategy isn't all that different, with a smart early Smoochum allowing Mega Slowbro to attack as early as turn 2. While an okay number of Japanese players have had success with Mega Slowbro and Slowking, the same can't be said for the 70 hit point Slowpoke. Probably because over there the attack is called Unlimited Disposal, while we get all you can yeet. Ultimately, there's not much to say. 70 hit points means it can be Poffin, but the deck already has 4 copies of Telepathic Energy to find Psychic Basics. What Japanese players did is include 1 Poffin since it can be found off Citra Box, whereas Telepathic can't. Basically, if you usually find yourself with a slow start, test out the 70 hit point Slowpoke. Otherwise, don't bother. Since this was about the best old decks with new cards, Mega Delphox wasn't featured here. Delphox isn't a top deck, and the Mega only offers up a funny attack, not a good one. I will mention that Dark Bell potentially helps Grimmsnarl, confusing their active and maybe giving you a free turn if they flip tails. Elsewhere, 1 copy of Chi-Yu should be added to any deck running Toxtricity. 110 damage for minimal effort is one-shotting Monkey Dory, just be aware that it doesn't hit for weakness. Finally, the new Armor Rouge gives the Rule Edge EX a way to deal with Crustle, provided you attach energy smartly. All in all, Pitch Black has a lot of helpful cards for older decks. Except even with all this help, Dragapult is still by far the best deck in format. And it didn't even need new cards to do so, proving that improving yourself is overrated and you're perfect just the way you are. Unless you put pineapple on pizza. Then you should absolutely stop that immediately.